Hi, it's Jerry Roberts. Welcome to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. It is Friday, January 15th, 5 more days till we have a new president. And want to welcome back our all-star panel of journalists, Nick Welsh, Delaney Smith, and Josh Molina. Thanks all for being here. So our numbers continue to be horrible for the virus. One thing beside the record number of cases and deaths is if you look at the state numbers, we are leading the state in the R0 number. That is to say, more people are infected by one case in Santa Barbara County than in anywhere else in the state, 1.23. But help is on the way, allegedly, in the form of the vaccine. Delaney, you're optimistic about this, are you?
I mean, of course I'm optimistic about it. I think everyone's optimistic about the vaccine. And in Santa Barbara County, we're actually doing better with our rollout than the state is as a whole, or the actual nation is as a whole as well. And on top of that, we just got the A-OK to start vaccinating people who are 65 and up as well, a whole new group of people. And right away, is that possible? Just because Newsom
said, I can tell you it's not.
Yes, you're correct. The answer is no. Just infrastructure wasn't set up for that. Just because he said so doesn't mean that we can just start doing it. But private care doctors and the county public health pods, the vaccination places, are gearing up and getting ready for that.
So is that going to come like through? I talked to my primary care person yesterday, and they have a small, and they're not going to get any vaccine. It's all going to come, they said, through Sansom and Cottage. Is that, or are we going to have something like, in Orange County where they set up Disneyland, or in LA where they're setting up Dodger Stadium? Is there going to be a large area where people can just go to get it?
No. What's going to happen is most people are going to be notified via their employer, if they do have an employer, that they are eligible for the vaccine. That's how most people are going to find out. And then those who aren't going to find out through their employer because they're either retired or they're not employed right now, they are going to find out through their primary care, or they're going to go into retail pharmacies are also going to be able to give the vaccine out. But there's not going to be one big mega center in Santa Barbara where you're getting the vaccine, no.
Yeah. Well, Prince Gavin said, Governor Newsom said that we were going to administer 1 million doses by January 15th. It being January 15th, we have now, as I understand it, in California, 500,000. And then he puts out this plan about, level 1A, sub B, paragraph 13. I mean, come on. I mean, Nick, you're old enough to have gotten the Salk vaccine, I imagine, for polio. You just went and got it. I don't understand this endless complication. All you need to know is.
I think the obvious problem here is, you have to ramp up, production, and production can't possibly meet the demand, so you have to ration it out. But the methods they use to sort of ration it get in their own way so much that they're constantly having to redo the rules. I mean, Delaney mentioned 53% of the vaccines that have come into our county have actually wound up in somebody's arms, which is about twice the 27% that's the statewide average. But that's in 3 weeks. So you think about that, in 3 weeks, we've done a little bit more than half of what we have. How hard can it be? And you have all these rules, what line are you in? What tier are you in? What pod do you go to? The language is anything but intuitive. Greg Hart, county supervisor at this week's supervisor meeting, said, please, come on, we really have to be clear with our language. Let's not talk about tiers. Let's not talk about pods. Let's use language that people can get. And so, already the county public health authorities have had to sort of re-scramble how the distribution schedules. And just as soon as they think, okay, now we've got it, boom, Governor Newsom comes out and says, oh, by the way, 65 years old. And, I called up because I just turned 65. I called up my doctor immediately. And, they said, we have no idea.
We have no, yeah. Yeah, it's so frustrating. And I had Carla Marinucci, the political reporter, on this week talking about the recall of Newsom, and he is doing nothing but fueling that. That's a different subject. Well, let's talk about some more of the fallout. Josh, you had a piece today, this week, about some of the restaurant owners getting a little more visible and vocal about objecting to Gavin's crackdown on dining, which may or may not be associated with more cases. What's happening with that?
Well, the restaurants are trying to gain momentum to push back on local officials to allow outdoor dining. And their point is that there isn't a lot of science, according to them, about the spread of COVID outdoors. And they say that there are still people who are eating outside. I mean, if you've been around on State Street, you will see them get the takeout and they'll eat it out there on the curb. They'll just sort of do it near the restaurant. And so they're saying, how can that be great either? Like, why don't we just put some tables out there and allow them to do it? So it's obviously a natural response. I mean, this is their business. And
are they correct? Is Gene Monsanto correct that there is no science suggesting that dining outdoors fuels the pandemic?
Well, I mean, that's a question that I was asking the public health department back in June, July, August. They all told me at the time that it doesn't spread outdoors. And it's sort of my take on that is, okay, but I'm sure a little bit helps. And we're trying to stop a pandemic. And there probably is some spread. Now, other people do feel that it is a large group and these people are not from the same family and the same household. So how can we be sure that there isn't some kind of spread? They do contract tracing, but of course, like everything in this whole process, nothing is perfect. They learn as they go. They're figuring it out. It's never happened before. So they are just sort of figuring things out on a trial and error basis. So it's hard to know. I don't think anybody has any 100% answers on any of this with the pandemic because it changes all the time. They are trying to say that government officials need to take more of a stand. And the city of Santa Barbara is saying, what do you want us to do? We closed State Street for outdoor dining. We allowed parklets. We did it practically overnight. And now you want us to do more. These cases are skyrocketing. Sorry, now is not the good time. So that's the debate, is whether the city should somehow do more to facilitate outdoor dining or just wait until the governor lifts the order.
All right. And then in terms of schools, Delaney, do we have a sense? I mean, nobody's going back to school until all the teachers are vaccinated. I will just assert that as a fact. Do we know when teachers are going to be able to get the vaccine?
That is a question I don't have the answer to, Jerry. I don't know if Josh does, but I do not know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Laura Capps said she was hopeful, I guess, the end of February, beginning of March or something like that. But they are in either the 1B or the 2A tier. I can't.
They're in the 1B tier. I know that, which is the tier that is allowed to get vaccinated right now. But because of all of these complications, there's so many different groups, like I said, and different ways of getting notified about it. I know that the way they're going to do this through school districts is a little bit different than through other employers. The school districts are going to have more of a hand in the plan for the vaccine rollout for teachers, as opposed to if you're working as a medical professional in the hospital. It's going to be different. So I don't know exactly when they're rolling out, but they are in that first initial group.
So would it, your best guess, are the kids going to go back to school this year or not?
I think they're going to go back to school this year. I don't think they're going to go back to school this semester, but I think they're going to go back to school after the summer.
In the fall would be,
Yeah.
the earliest. They're not going back to school this semester, are they?
No, oh no, not this semester. When I meant this year, I meant
Yeah,
2021.
Yeah. And then Nick, we got this whole evictions issue. I know you talked to state Senator Limon this week about that. She's been very involved in all of the state legislation. Isn't that about the eviction ban about to expire again?
Yeah, so at the end of the month, the protections that were enacted as an emergency measure last summer by the state legislature saying you can't evict unless you can't evict tenants who didn't pay rent because of COVID, but tenants are supposed to pay 25% of their rent. That was the bone to the landlords. That expires January 31st, which is in a couple of weeks. So as of February 1st, you can start evicting tenants, and as of March 1st, you can start suing tenants who didn't pay you back rent.
Under the existing
Under
regulation.
the existing rollout. So everybody in Sacramento understands, given the severity of the situation, given the number of homeless people who may or may not become homeless as a result of this, it's a humanitarian crisis and it's a public health crisis. So they have to do something. So you have to get a bill passed in 2 weeks, and it needs a 2/3 supermajority because it's an urgency bill. So, there's some talks that is it going to be extended for 4 months, or is it going to be extended for 12 months? Or is it going to be somewhere in between? Is there any money on the table that could help, pay some of the expenses? And then the other one that's sort of an interesting wrinkle is if the state passes a big protection like this, one of the things the landlords want is we don't want any more of these local measures. We don't want each and every city saying we're going to pass our own bill. So we have to sort of figure out how to negotiate 2 regulations as opposed to 1. So it may be a local government versus state government issue. So there's a lot going on and not a whole lot of time to work it out. But there's a real sense that something absolutely has to happen. I spoke with Steve Bennett, who is our new assembly member, and spoke with Nick Limon, who is our new state senator. And they both said whatever gets passed isn't going to look anything like what's being discussed now, and nobody's going to like it.
Yeah,
So
I have a great sense of deja vu. I mean, all over again. Didn't we just did this in like September, right?
That was in August. Yeah. And it was a big down and dirty last minute showdown.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh, I've lost the thread of where we are with this at City Hall, because there were a number of things passed and debated and stuff, but I guess they've just now, they're saying we're just going to follow state law, whatever that is. But what if this state law were to expire in a couple of weeks, as Nick points out? What would the council do, or what is the council doing?
I don't know. The council, I imagine, would put something on the agenda to figure out a way to extend it locally. I mean, I could see this council doing that.
And it would freak out all the landlords once again.
Yeah, the landlords already freaked out. Landlords already despise majority of the council. So city council has nothing to lose by doing that. It is an election year, but that's really going to fuel more of the candidates who are going to be taking on Kristen Sneddon and Kathy Murillo.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then the other thing at the school board, Delaney, last time we talked about how Sean Carey, who apparently runs the place, is trying to do away with D's and F's, but now the school board pushed back a little bit on that. So what did they finally decide? Only to do away with D's? And is that only for distance learning periods of time, or is that going to become permanent?
So the opposite. They're going to only do away with F's. They're going to keep D's. And that was the compromise. Because D's, you can still pass high school and get high school credit with that. And so that was the argument, was there's some kids who they might not be striving to get to college or anything. They're just trying to get through high school, and removing D's really created a barrier to them being able to graduate. So now A through D, you can get those grades. And then if you receive an F, there is just no more Fs. Fs will be a no credit, which means that it doesn't affect your GPA whatsoever. It just kind of vanishes off.
And is that going to be permanent?
No, that is just going to be throughout distance learning.
Okay, all right. Was there any objection by anybody in the public? Did anybody raise any objections, or did this just kind of?
Not to this new compromise. Everyone seemed to be pretty happy with. The board was happy with. It was an easy, unanimous vote.
No. Hey,
Come on,
Nick.
Jerry.
Go
Jerry,
ahead.
we only see people object during election year and talk about all the stuff that they ignored for the 3.5 years prior to that, and then they want to be a savior.
Yeah, okay. And Nick, I have a great idea. If we just took out second base, we would see a lot more scoring in baseball, and it'd be much more interesting. Do you agree with me? Would you be in favor of that rule change?
Yeah, say that again?
If we just did away with second base in baseball, we would have much more scoring. Just kind of like doing
I
away.
think you have a lot more people thrown out at third.
Well, or we could start people on third, although I guess there are people who do start on third. I just want to read this quote from Sean Carey, which is translated from the original Swedish. We need to implement these plans with fidelity and with a continued collaboration with all our stakeholder groups in order to achieve the different outcomes that we need. What is that? Is fidelity the new buzzword of the year? This is
Oh, yeah, Jerry, fidelity was last year. Fidelity's been around for a while.
I thought lens was last year. Did I miss something? All right.
Jerry,
Yeah.
Jerry, your analogy is a good one, but you're missing the point, which is not everybody starts at home plate. And in fact, some kids aren't even allowed on the field to play. And so their perspective is that's the part we need to work on and fix. And until we can fix that, let's not punish them for not scoring.
So the correct analogy is, how do we get them from the dugout to the batter's box?
No, for some of these underrepresented kids, it's how do we even get them to the stadium or to the field to even be in the conversation to participate. That's their perspective. And for a lot of people, it is true. I see your point, that objectively, what are we doing?
Saying, when you get out in the real world, there are Fs.
Yeah.
That occur.
Yeah, I mean, and
if you screw stuff up.
That's true. And, at some point, everybody has to figure it out in the real world. And I think, we have district administrators who really are activist minded, and they're really trying to do what they can. But yeah, that's exactly correct. The argument is, how long can you do this before they have to realize that the real world is super harsh?
But come on, right now, I mean, when you get an F on your report card, that's just a bomb. It's just so it's a massive bomb on your report card. If you got 3 Fs, it is a really discouraging. It doesn't. You just get to what's the point? And so right now, at this time, when people can't get access to the teachers the way they used to and education the way they used to, you really do have to come up with an emergency system so that people aren't getting hammered as hard as they would be. It's not the normal situation remotely. So I think getting rid of the Fs makes a lot of sense right now. I mean, having it as an ongoing thing, I don't think makes sense. But right now, given what we're experiencing, I think that's an emergency response that makes sense.
And we had students, Jerry, who spoke during public comment. It was actually more high school students than adults spoke during public comment this last Tuesday. And a few of them made comments like, we're not getting graded based on what we know. We're getting graded based on whether or not we have the Wi-Fi to get into class. We might get bonked out of the Zoom room because we have crappy Wi-Fi. And then as a result, our grade goes down because our grade is so much based on participation, and we're just being graded on how strong of a Wi-Fi signal we have, essentially. And so
Yeah.
that came through a lot.
I see that, but I understood from Sean's comments where she said, well, this is not something that just came about because of the pandemic. This has been, an issue we've been looking at and so on. I don't think this is going to just go away after remote learning. I think this is going to be with us always. Am I misreading that?
No, it is the beginning of a reimagining of how you grade students. They don't know what that's going to look like, but they're trying to figure out how do we grade what people actually learn and know, as opposed to just giving these harsh sort of D's and F's. So you're right there, Jerry. It is the beginning of a conversation.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about what the great city council did this week. They were there till, was it midnight or after, with the mayor's fine handling of the meetings and the agenda again, not to raise that. But one thing, a lot of people applied for this, I don't know what the police review board, which is not the police review board, what the community.
Civilian Formation Commission.
Okay, so 79
Community Formation
people,
Commission.
that's a lot of people applied to that. A lot of interest in this.
So I don't know, Nick, go ahead.
80 people essentially, and there's 13 people that are going to sit on it with 2 alternates. So you got to get 15 out of 80. And I think on Tuesday night they heard from about 30. There were some really impressive people, and you just thought, wow, I should have known it. I should know these people. I think the council is going to be really hard pressed to figure out how to winnow it down.
So they're going to do this again. Are they going to do this again on Tuesday?
I don't know the next day. They're going to do it again. And I think that by the end of the evening, everybody was getting pretty short tempered. Council member Alejandro Gutierrez said, listen, we just can't do this again. If we have really important items like this, the public has to be able to participate, and they're not going to be staying up late at night, like 11 o'clock, to listen to the bitter end to weigh in. Kathy got a little bit defensive about it. Paul Casey, the city administrator, said, there's a problem. If you're trying to interview 80 people, and have a meaningful interview in public, there's just no shortcut. And then you want to have a policy on top of that.
Well, that was the problem. I think that's what Alejandro was, wasn't she complaining more about the
Well, it was just
Southern California Edison out of business ordinance that they had? What was that one, Josh?
Yeah, so the council wants to switch new construction from gas to electric. And let me just chime in a little bit here. And the council managed that meeting terribly, and there's no justification. Kathy Murillo will say, this is our job. Paul Casey will say, we have a lot of work to do. These council members were literally falling asleep. Okay, they turned off their cameras. It looked like a pajama party. Like they were just like on the couch, just falling asleep, like everybody needs to go to bed. Okay, they had 76 people apply for this commission. They don't need to interview them at 2 o'clock. Here's what they need to do. Have a special meeting where they just focus on that.
Exactly.
Or flip.
Special weekend meeting.
Or flip it. Have the really important Edison discussion first, and then have a time specific in the evening. And I bet that works better for working people anyway. Instead, what they did was literally 4 hours of interviews. All they're trying to do is drag it out for all of the people who hate the city for wanting to make this change. It's like agitating all of the pro-gas people to say, we're going to make you wait until 8, 9, 10 o'clock before you have to talk. It's not the first time. Paul Casey will deny that. Kathy will deny it. It is an active thing that they do, okay? It's bad agenda management. And they need to figure out a way. When are they doing it next? January 26th, because they don't meet on a Tuesday after a holiday. There needs to be some leadership on the council that says, we have a lot of work to do, and this pandemic is making everything take longer because of the virtual nature of the meetings. So we're going to have to schedule some extra meetings. Everyone else is impacted. We're going to have to do the same. No excuse to be creating. They didn't actually take a final vote, but there's no excuse to be directing staff to do anything at the Santa Barbara City Council level at 11 o'clock at night.
No,
As Delaney knows, the Board of Supervisors meets early on Thursday. Okay. The other part of it is, and I don't want to make this about me, but I cover two beats, the school board and the city council. Okay. The public loses when government stretches out these meetings so long that the transparency is lost. And the only people on the planet, Delaney and I, who cover these meetings, like, we're having to like juggle. Like, that is not a good way to get your message out.
Yeah,
And
there's so many
very
different ways they
frustrating.
can skin that cat. They could, like, say, we're gonna have 2 hours on interviews and we're gonna have to do it for a month. I mean, you could do it. The idea of having 4 hours of those interviews plus this big meeting, and how, there were like 700 people who had written letters or emails on the decarbonization of new development. I mean, it was an intense meeting, and
it's a
if
big
the
deal.
council
I
members
mean,
are
it's
not
a
at their
huge,
sharpest.
that's a huge policy change. I mean, let me say first, I think it's good that they're interviewing all these people. I think it's great that so many people, and I think if you're going to do a police review kind of thing, the research shows that you really have to be careful and take your time and do it right. So I think that's good.
And they're doing that.
And they should be doing that. But the thing is, what is the mayor's job? Okay, ideally they'd be out there, if you had, say, a pandemic or anything, and offer some leadership, but run the damn meeting. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Let me look real quick on this natural gas thing. So all new construction would have to have only electricity. Have I got that right?
It hasn't been decided, but yeah, that's it. So any new construction, residential or commercial, would have to be all electric and no gas. They're talking about exempting restaurants and laboratories and backyard barbecues and backyard outdoor fireplaces and swimming pools. I mean, we'll see what gets exempt. But yeah, that's the gist.
But so who beside Edison is against this?
Pretty much Edison and a front group that Edison created.
What about
what Edison did? Edison was for it. SoCal Gas.
gas?
SoCal Gas was very much against it. Edison actually came out and said, "We think it's a great idea." PG&E up in San Luis Obispo and Diablo, they said, "You know what? We think it's a great idea." You had 45 environmental groups sign off on the Magna Carta and say, "We think it's a great idea."
Is it going to make building more expensive even in Santa Barbara?
That was the argument. That was one of the arguments, and both sides argued it both ways. And according to the city staff report, that it is a wash financially. It is cost effective, so whatever the initial, it's cheaper to do construction with electric than having to install the whole infrastructure for gas. It's cheaper per BTU for gas, but electrical appliances are so much more efficient. So you have to balance all that out.
All right.
In terms of, so both sides were saying we're financially superior.
But bottom line, it's a huge issue and it shouldn't be debated at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, that's for sure. All right. We just got a minute. Delaney, I know you got to run. What are you working on?
I am working on a big story about learning loss right now. Learning loss in Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Carpinteria.
That's a great story. I look forward to that. Josh, who's on the podcast?
Well, Jerry, I'm going to keep that a mystery because quite frankly,
Have
Jerry,
you started doing the video yet? Have you started trying to take away market share from me?
Quite frankly, Jerry, I've been so busy with NewsSock, I haven't scheduled another podcast. But Yeah, Jerry, I've consulted and I'm reaching a new demographic, and we're figuring out all the shortcomings of your presentation, and we're going to attack. And this time next year, sorry to say,
It'll probably take you a year to figure out all the shortcomings of mine, and you can have, but when you
Okay.
go for my
Josh,
22 viewers, good luck.
So Josh, I'm sure you've noticed that the city of Santa Barbara is going to be hiring a public information officer.
Again?
Are you thinking of applying for the position?
No, I
you know,
didn't.
Nick,
I
you know,
didn't.
Nick, I've come to terms with the fact that public relations is not my greatest gift. So, no, I'll let somebody else apply. I'll let some other disgruntled newspaper reporter apply for that one.
Or John Palmentary?
He's his own PR machine.
There's a new position being created, a PIO position?
Yeah, they are going to hire a public information officer. And it came out, Michael Jordan, who is one of the grumpier council members, just as a general rule, was getting particularly grumpy about 11:30 at night. And he was suggesting that the council absolutely desperately needs a public information officer, or City Hall needs one. And he said, I know we don't have the money, but when you're trying to figure out what to do with the money you don't have, I really want you to think about having a public information officer.
Is that now, whatever, wasn't Anthony Wagner the ad hoc guy?
So
Or
he is the public information officer for the police department.
Right.
For very briefly was sort of Kathy Mario's.
Very briefly.
But
Oh,
you're-
that's right. Right. When we had the weekly series of State of the City. Yeah, that was a big success.
Sure, Kathy, that sounds like a good idea. Go grab the microphone.
Okay, on that note, who else is running for mayor? Did we talk? Roger is running for mayor. Is that right, Josh? Have you heard that?
I've heard that from people that he wants to run. I've not asked him.
Roger Perry?
Roger Perry, yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely has been interested. I don't know if he's, I kind of doubt it, but I know he's interested and he knows a ton of people. He's been involved, but I have a hard time seeing it. The interesting name I heard thrown out based on almost no evidence, Janet LaRufus, Bank of Montecito.
Yeah.
That would be interesting if she did.
Oh, it'd be great.
Jerry's going to have an interview with her in a month and call it an exclusive, just FYI.
Look, just because you got stomped on the Gail Teton Landis story, don't.
Jerry, for those of us who cover the beat, we have to make decisions about when we cover things. We can't just throw it all up there whenever we know about it.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, you really got scooped on that one. All right, everybody. Thank you. Nick, Delaney, and Josh, we'll see you next time. And if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. Bye.